So hello again, everybody. Obviously, yeah, my name's Dr. Lauren Jones, and I'm really excited to tell you a little bit about my career pathway today. I'd also first like to acknowledge the country that I'm on. I'm on Kaurna land, and all of Flinders here in Adelaide are on Kaurna land. And I'd like to acknowledge the elders past and present and the emerging leaders. So my STEM journey, I thought I'd start with high school. So in high school, I was a bit of a lover of science and maths. And I chose the year 12 subjects, chemistry, physics, specialist maths and maths studies. So I really went hardcore on all of that area. And this was something that I was really quite passionate about. I really enjoyed chemistry experiments. I think that was my all-time favorite thing, which funnily enough sets me up for where I am now. So leading on from high school, I obviously had to choose my university degree, and I chose a Bachelor of Medical Science. And I actually chose this with a different goal in mind. Science wasn't my first choice leaving high school. Actually, postgraduate medicine was. That was the original goal. So I quite liked people, and I really liked the idea of helping people. And I sort of thought that this was a good area that was going to bring together my love of science as well as my love of people and helping people. However, throughout my uni degree, so during my Bachelor of Medical Science, the main topics I did were again chemistry, biology. This was my first sort of introduction into biology. And then I sort of focused in on neuroscience, so the study of the brain, and human physiology, so how the body works essentially. And throughout Bachelor of Medical Science, we still didn't do much in terms of science or research. We were still sort of focused on a lot to do with medicine or healthcare. And at this time, I sort of thought of science as just looking down a microscope all day, every day for, 8 hours a day, kind of boring, I guess, nothing really exciting. And I really didn't know, I guess, what science was all about. But then at the end of my Bachelor of Medical Science degree, I did an honours degree. So this is a 1-year additional year on top of your bachelor degree, and you get put into a lab and you get given a project and you get to actually do research, so scientific research for a year. And this really opened my eyes. This was super exciting. So this gave me an insight into medical research, and I was extremely inspired and excited by this. So I actually focused on motor neuron disease, which some of you might have heard of, especially through football. So in football, they do the big freeze every year. This is a MND event, so fighting motor neuron disease, and it raises money for research like mine. Like in honours, I was focused on developing a treatment for motor neuron disease. And so I guess in honours, I both learnt a bit more about medical research, but I also could see that medical research does have a direct effect on helping people. So it still sort of satisfied my drive to help people. But I mainly learnt that it wasn't just looking down a boring microscope every day, but actually what you were looking down the microscope at was really cool things. So here we have an image of some neurons. So we've sort of labeled these neurons in green, and we can see how they're interacting with other cell types in blue and red. And like these sort of beautiful images are something I would see every second day here in the lab. And this really excited me. The other thing I learned from my honours degree was I spoke to a PhD student who was finishing at the time, and he told me, or phrased science in the way that we are creating knowledge. This is something I'd never thought of before, and I was really quite amazed by that. And I thought, that's true. We're researching things that have never been researched before. We are creating knowledge. And this really satisfied my love of learning, which is quite a strong theme in my personality, is the love of learning. So from honours, I actually did a sidestep. I didn't want to do postgrad medicine anymore. I wanted to do a PhD and see where that would take me. So this is quite a big shift, but one I was really excited of. And I guess this was really the the big direction in my STEM journey. So my STEM journey, then I did a PhD, and my PhD was on the role of serotonin in the gut. I'll tell you a bit more about that in a moment, but I was very lucky to visit other labs. So here I visited the University of Nevada in Reno, which is in America. And this was the lab group that I met down the bottom right here. And I did a bunch of different experiments there, and you can see some of the setups here. And so I guess what I'm showing you is science. The experiments you do in high school are quite limited, but when you actually get into science as a career, it's very exciting. You're sort of doing cutting edge research, and I really love it. Here's me. I've gone to the surgical theatres and collecting some surgical tissue in order to do experiments on, which is another cool thing I'm able to do. And then I've been very lucky that some of my work has been published. So these have been published in peer-reviewed journals, which means that experts in the field have looked at my work and said, yeah, this is really interesting. This is new knowledge. We're going to publish this for the world to see. And so then I did my PhD, which I finished last year, as Sarah mentioned, at Flinders Uni. And now I am moving on to what's known as a postdoc. So a postdoc is, or the full term, a postdoctoral researcher is what you call yourself when you're continuing the research path after your PhD. So my current work now is looking at the role of serotonin both in gut motility. So in the first video is an example of gut motility. So here we have an intestine that's been removed, and it still has a fecal sample inside it. And you can see that the gut is amazing, as it can continue to work outside of the body. And this is because it has its own nervous system. So here the gut is moving this fecal pellet along the gut without any input from the brain, which is really fascinating. And in this other video here is a 3D analysis of some microscopy images where I'm looking at the connection between the cells that secrete serotonin in our gut and this brain in our gut. And so this is my main work and what I'm now focused on in doing my postdoctoral research. So I'm going to leave it there, but thanks for listening, everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lauren. That was really interesting. I really liked how you had a clear sort of fork in the road moment when it came to what you decided to do. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Thanks, Sarah.
No worries. So our second speaker this morning is Winter Okoth. Winter is a third-year PhD student in the Laboratory of Vaccines for the Developing World at the Institute of Glycomics at Griffith University in Queensland. Her research project is focused on the development of malaria vaccines. So over to you, Winter.
Thank you, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I just want to acknowledge the country that I'm on and the elders past and present as well. So for the session today, I will share with you a little bit about my STEM journey, how it started, where I'm at and where it's going. And I look forward to interacting with you during the Q&A session as well. So first, I wanted to show you where I come from. So I do come from African continent, from a country known as Kenya on the eastern side of sub-Saharan Africa. And my hometown is in Kenya, Kisumu. And we have one of our treasures, Lake Victoria. We share it with Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. So that's East Africa. And this is Nairobi City. That's the capital city. We have Mount Kenya there. We have another big city, Mombasa. It's along the Indian Ocean in the east, in the coast. And then we have Kisumu City, which is my hometown city. And one of our features in Kisumu, Kit Mikai, these are just amazing stones, the way they're packed. It's really impressive to see. and Diani Beach. This is in Mombasa City along the Indian Ocean, and some really cool wild animals as well. So what did I love doing in high school? First and foremost, I really enjoyed my time in high school. And this is a photo that I'm showing. I'm showing part of my high school, one of the buildings. And this big tree you're seeing here, this is St. Gabriel's Gagra High School, which is a mixed high school for both boys and girls. And the big tree you're seeing here, it's a really famous tree that has served as the assembly point where students can congregate and have meetings with their teachers. And the building behind me, that's me standing in front of the students, just giving them, it was a mentoring session when I got back from America after finishing my undergraduate studies. And I just went back to my school to give back, and having that, mentoring session with the entire school and just to encourage them. So this building here where I'm showing, this is where our laboratory is. And we used to do all the labs, be it physics, chemistry, biology, home science, agriculture. We shared the same building. We didn't have enough resources and we didn't have enough space. So it's really coming from a very humbling background. And we didn't have electricity either. Yeah, so this is really a beautiful photo. It just brings me, it brings back memories of where I came from. Back in high school, I did enjoy science club. I was one of the science club leaders. I did enjoy science fair. So like the science congress where you have a project and, ask a question and come up with an hypothesis, and then you test it. And then you give a presentation of your findings or the things that you work on in the future. I also loved the science courses like chemistry, biology, physics, mathematics. Besides that, I was a school prefect, so I was engaged in student leadership and also helped tutor mathematics and the science courses as well to my fellow students. I also enjoyed arts, performing arts like singing, outdoor activities like playing netball and volleyball. And overall, I never stopped learning. I loved learning new things and just keep on, being open-minded and learning. So what am I doing? What is my research about? So currently I'm doing my PhD on malaria vaccine research. And just to brief you about malaria, it's a very life-threatening infectious disease of great public health concern. And it is caused by mosquito-borne, it's a mosquito-borne disease that's caused by Plasmodium parasites. And it causes, acute febrile illness with clinical symptoms such as fever, joint pain, sweating, and severe cases. And majority of the cases are in sub-Saharan Africa. In the year 2020, there were almost 241 million clinical malaria cases and more than 600,000 malaria deaths globally. And unfortunately, children under the age of 5 years accounted for 80% of malaria deaths in sub-Saharan Africa. And as at now, we still don't have a licensed, highly efficacious malaria vaccine. So my research focused on developing a vaccine that would target the blood stage of the parasite life cycle. And this is just a drawing showing you like a cartoon, how when the parasite gets inside the red blood cells, this is the red blood cell, it gets infects the red blood cells, and then it starts growing and changing its form as it goes. And the cycle continues invading more and more red blood cells. So having a vaccine that can target this stage of the parasite will be key in also preventing clinical symptoms as well, and just preventing the disease. So how do vaccines work? So I am pretty sure you all are aware of vaccines now, especially now that we're still in the midst of the pandemic. And vaccines saves lives, and they work by helping boost our immune cells. So these are our defense cells that are fighting for us, to prevent any pathogen or microbe from infecting us or making us sick. And the vaccine is there to help strengthen and improve the memory of these immune cells so that they can fight the parasite, or they can fight the microbe when it attacks you again. And your body is very well equipped to fight the pathogen the next time it attacks your system. So to share a little bit about my career path. So I did my primary school in Kenya. And this is a photo sharing with the primary school students. This is where I went for primary school, and just having a teaching session through a mentoring program I'm running with an organization I founded, which is more of mentoring opportunities for primary and high school students. And then I went to high school, St. Gabriel's Gagra, and that's me going to fetch some water from the river. And I stayed with my grandmother. And in high school, like I said before, it was really cool just being open to learning and being active and getting involved and always asking questions. From there, I proceeded on to undergraduate, and this I went to Thomas More University in America, in Kentucky. And this was through scholarship that I applied for. And while in undergraduate, I did major in biology and chemistry, and finished with my honors degree in both. And then once I finished that, I proceeded on to do my Masters of Science in molecular microbiology and immunology at Johns Hopkins University in Maryland, USA. And this is where I was introduced into malaria research. So this, I'm just showing you a photo of me in the insectary where we were growing mosquitoes. And just a photo of me in the lab in my bench, where my bench was, and giving a seminar talk regarding my, a presentation on my thesis project. So overall, this was my introduction into malaria research and more into public health field as well. And I got really fascinated about it, and I wanted to get to know more about malaria, how to fight malaria disease and the science behind it. And then I decided to proceed on to do, to engage in more in malaria research. And I got an opportunity as a Rice Research Fellow at the US FDA, where I got to do malaria research for a little while, for like a year and a couple of months. And while I was doing that, I also got involved in advocacy. So championing the fight against malaria, reaching out to politicians, to the government, to the private sector, and telling them, hey, you really need to support the fight against malaria, support science, research and development. And this is just a photo of me, myself and another malaria champion when we had a meeting with a member of Congress for Maryland, from Maryland, and when we visited his office at the US Capitol. So this is a program with the United Nations Foundation, which I'm a part of as a malaria champion. And then I got into my PhD. So right now, my third year, I'm in the final year, and just looking into malaria vaccines, looking at vaccine research, and malaria immunology as well, here at Griffith Uni Institute for Glycomics, and always ready to learn. And it's such an honor to be also part of IMNIS program, to see how industry, comparing how industry and academia works, and how both fields can collaborate and work together. Besides science, some of my hobbies, like I said, I love doing advocacy work, just to share my voice on things that I champion for, the causes that I champion for. I love singing, music. I love baking, just trying different cuisine and cooking. I'm also, I love mentoring, and I founded a mentorship organization that helps reaching out to schools, primary schools, and high schools and universities to have that aspire, inspire cycle where the university students can reach out and inspire their high schoolers, and high school students can also reach out and inspire the primary school students. And overall, these are some of the hobbies as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Winter.
Thank you.
So let me just quickly press some buttons. We'll put us all up there. Done. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So it is now time to move on to our panel discussion. Just a reminder that we're also accepting your questions. So please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit a question. I've been jotting a couple down myself. So I will just start off with asking both of you, if you had a time machine and you could go back and give some advice to your high school self, what would that advice be? I'll start with you, Winter.
Thanks, Sarah. The advice would be, don't limit yourself. Just be open-minded, learn as much as you can, because you never know where your path will lead to. You can never be specific, like this is what I will be doing, for the rest of my life. In high school is a good introductory phase to the world, showing you the different possibilities and things that you could end up doing eventually, because nobody knows. But I would just advise you to be open-minded, be ready to learn. Even if you fail a class, I can give you a little bit of a story. When I was in Form 2, so in high school, we call them Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, Form 4. So year 12 is Form 4. So when I was in Form 2, and I did terrible in this chemistry class, really, really bad. Like I think I got a D. I did get a D. And that really almost made me lose my confidence. And I was really bothered about it. And when I reached out to my chemistry teacher and I asked him, I don't understand why I got that score. It's really troubling me. And he did ask me that, have you borrowed the chemistry textbook just to do some reading on your own? And I said, okay, we did have limitation, not enough books anyway, but we did have some. And his advice was, I want you to pick that book, read the topic ahead of me, so that you see if you can understand it before I teach you in class. So that really helped me, and it helped improve my grade, not only in chemistry, but in other classes as well. Just having that, being proactive. Just be proactive, and then the teacher's there to do the 10%. You're there to do the 90% of the work. So just be proactive and have the interest and curiosity, wanting to learn and know about it. And if you fail or even fail a test, that's not the end of the world. You'll pick up yourself up and it will get better. Yeah.
Thanks, Winter. I think it can be handy to have that kind of perspective at times, that just because you failed one Form 2 subject, one Form 2 chemistry subject, doesn't mean you can't go on to pursue your science stream as well. So yeah, that's wonderful. Lauren, did you have any advice for high school, Lauren?
Yeah, some similar advice to Winter, but a little bit different. Mine is probably that you don't need to have all the answers right now. I think I particularly remember in high school this feeling like what I chose to do in, my year 11 subjects, or even my year 10 subjects, and then my year 12 subjects, was going to pin me into that for the rest of my life. And I remember just feeling so stressed about it. And so I really, I chose the hardest subjects, and I didn't want to cut myself off from any direction that I might have wanted to go in. And then what I've realized over time is there is no cutting yourself off. You can always find another way to get somewhere. And you don't have to have the answers in, you know, year 10, 11 or 12. You don't have to have them when you're 25. You can change them whenever you want. And there's always a way. So I think, yeah, don't stress too much. Just do what you're interested in at the time, and your life will take you in whatever direction. You never know who you're going to meet or what's going to happen. That would be my advice. Stress less.
That's true. I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That whole, yeah, trying to do as much as you can to make sure you stay on that path. It really sort of narrows your focus and means you can't be open to other opportunities that may come your way. Speaking of, both of you have sort of touched on elements where you had forks in the road, where your careers could have gone in a different way. Is there anything that sort of stands out in terms of, you know, turning left or turning right, in terms of what other career paths were open to you? I'll start with you, Lauren.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I did already mention, but medicine was a big one for me. And actually, I didn't say, but at the end of my honours degree, I both applied for a PhD scholarship and to get into medicine. And then I got into both, and that was a massive fork in the road. But obviously honours had really made me fall in love with research. And while it was hard, because I felt like, you know, a lot of people wanted me to do medicine, yeah, I did choose, obviously, science instead. So I'm not sure if I quite answered your question. So I guess, yeah, there are other career options, and there still are going to be, I suppose. I was lucky to meet Sarah and Winter in Canberra last week, and learned a bit more about informing government and creating policy. And that's something that interests me, and hearing about Winter's advocacy work. And I'm not sure I'm done yet. I might take another career path, or I might take another side step, but yeah, so there's lots of stuff open to me, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing at the moment. I hope that answers your question.
No, it definitely does. And it's interesting to see that, well, it's good to see that we're, you know, everyone's sort of always growing and always looking for those new opportunities. And just because you're researching one thing at the moment doesn't mean that something like, you know, like advocacy, like Winter was talking about, that could, you know, take you on a completely different journey. Winter, did you have any sort of fork in the road moments where you picked one thing over another?
So I remember during my undergrad, I got an opportunity to do internship during my second year in undergraduate, and internship in a biomedical laboratory. So that was my first introduction to biomedical science, like how things happen in the lab. And it was really interesting, honestly. And at that point, I was just like Lauren, I was thinking to take the MCAT test for the medical school application. And also at the same time wanted to explore the science component as well. So when I got that internship, and the experience was really good, and I got really fascinated by, you know, the ability to ask questions and to do research and, you know, discover new knowledge, like what Lauren shared in a talk earlier. I found that really fascinating, that I could bring in some new knowledge that nobody knew about, and like, voila, you know, we discovered this. So I think that really caught my attention, and I stuck with the science lane. Other than that, I would see myself like a medical doctor if I was not doing, I was not a research scientist, or I would see myself in advocacy field, like policy reforms as well. And maybe I would say business, like entrepreneurship. Yeah, so there's always room to learn, and just don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. And things change in different phases of our life. You know, one phase of your life, you can be focusing on this, and you never know, like in the next phase of your life, it might be a totally different, something different, but interconnected in a way. And all the skills that you're getting from what you're doing right now, you can still transfer it in another phase of your career, you know, or a totally different career altogether. Yeah.
Fantastic. So a question has actually come through a little bit, sort of relating to your advocacy work, Winter. Is it harder to talk to politicians or to regular people about what you do?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, talking to politicians, you have to have like the catchy words. So you have to be very precise and, you know, go to the point, and you have the catchphrases and tell them, this is why we need your assistance and why this is a problem and why you need to support, you know, and you have to be persistent. And it's something that you cannot just do in one sitting or visiting the offices just once. No, you have to keep on knocking on their doors and saying, hey, we need the government to support this. And or to floor a statement like the member of Congress that I reached out to, he made it, you know, he took his time and went to the Congress and made a floor statement and asking the US government to, you know, support science and malaria, the fight against malaria, to, you know, set aside some funding to go into that. So it's just, it needs you to be persistent. Don't give up, because most of the times you can knock onto their doors and maybe you don't see any change happening immediately as much as you might want, but eventually it will get there. What was the other part?
It was, is it easier to talk to them or to talk to a politician as opposed to, I guess, like the old adage of someone at a barbecue kind of thing?
Yeah, so for politicians, you just have to be, because they don't have such a long time. So if you get like 5 minutes for a meeting, you have to exhaust everything that you want to talk to them in that 5 minutes, because they're really busy with so many meetings and all that. So if you're lucky enough to get them and get to talk with them, make sure you don't leave anything out. Just put it in strategically and have those catchphrases and tell them, this is the problem, this is what is running low, or this is how your office can support us, and like that. And just keep on following up with them. So I think it takes some practice, actually.
I can imagine. So the both of you have touched on in your talks about that at various points you both went overseas. Lauren to the lab in Nevada, I think it was,
yeah,
and Winter obviously over to the US to Congress and things. Is going overseas, was it something that you felt you needed to do, or was it just something that just happened to be part of the journey? Lauren?
That's a good question. There is actually a bit of a, what's the word? There's a bit of a feeling that one should go overseas at some point in their science career in order to, I guess, experience how it works internationally and collaborate. And, you know, I guess science is an international thing. We're all working towards the same goal. There's sort of no borders in science, which is something that drew me to it and something that I love. And so some of the older professors feel like you have to do that. And some of the newer professors feel like maybe you don't have to, but it's still a good thing to do. But yeah, it was something I was particularly interested in. And I was very grateful to have the opportunity, and I love doing it. And I hope to move overseas and do some more work in another country further down in my career, you know, maybe in a few years' time. I forget your question. Was that, did I answer?
No, I like your point about how where you said how science has no borders. That's a really great way of thinking about it. Winter, do you find the same thing? Did you feel like you had to go overseas?
Totally agree with Lauren. And when I finished high school, just the final year of high school, our principal introduced a vision club. So it was just a few of the top performing students in that club, and we were given the task of making a plane, like using cardboards. So we had to literally make a plane, and then we started imagining, you know, just imagination, like, oh, if only I could be on a plane, you know, going somewhere or doing this or doing that. And that imagination was really powerful, like at that point, because we're already trying to envision where we would see ourselves, like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where will I be? And, some of us thinking about, I want to be in Europe, I want to be here, I want to be in, America, I want to go there and do study and study that. So I think that's where I started seeing like outside the box and thinking not just where I was at the time, but thinking beyond, where I was at the moment. And so when I finished, I started writing applications for scholarships. Like those are some things that I can advise the year 12 students that are here, that don't limit yourself, just reach out. If there are scholarships out there, if it's in a different continent or country, just reach out. And it's a good way of also exploring and the world and getting to learn and seeing the global stage, and it opened your eyes to so many things. There are so many stereotypes out here. Like I remember the first time I went to America and some people didn't know that we had tall buildings, maybe someone asked you if you were sleeping close to a lion. And I said, no, I haven't seen a lion that close.
And I really don't want to see a lion that close. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, it was a learning opportunity, and I did not get offended. I didn't get mad about it. And I was like, whoa, this is my opportunity to also educate them about where I come from, and to educate them and say, hey, this is where I come from. And no, we don't stay in the same house with the lion. So I would really advise you to, when you get the opportunity to even do an exchange program, you can get into the high school exchange programs, undergraduate exchange programs. Take advantage, even if it's a trimester studying somewhere in Italy or France or, America or whatever, or somewhere in Asia. Just take advantage to go there. You also learn from different cultures. It makes you well-rounded person, and you get to know how to interact with people from different cultures, different lifestyles. So overall, it's very educative and it's very eye-opening. So I would highly recommend that go for it.
Fantastic advice. Thanks, Winter. So a question has come through specifically for Lauren about her research. So brain in the gut, is that like, is that something about getting your emotions? Because I know myself, I get very hangry if I don't feed my gut enough, and that definitely impacts my emotions. Is that the type of thing you're talking about when you say sort of gut brain?
That's definitely a big part of what I do, yeah. There's lots of different angles one can take when thinking about the gut and the brain, but my research is focused on how our gut affects or even drives our mental health. So yeah, how are we feeling? Are we anxious? Are we happy? Different emotions, and can we possibly then treat our any issues with mental health through our gut is then my second focus.
So a little bit more complicated than just eat some chocolate when you feel sad?
Unfortunately, a little bit more complicated.
Dang. Here's me thinking I was having,
Sarah. I'd be out of the job.
Here's me thinking I'm having my own scientific breakthrough on the couch every night. Who would have thought? Fantastic. And the last question I have here is, it's probably the most important question, to be completely honest. And it's, what do you enjoy most about what you do? I'll start with you, Winter.
Oh, wow. What do I enjoy most? I think it's just being able to make a difference through science. And for instance, regarding different diseases that we are studying, and for the fight against malaria, because it's such a very devastating disease. And we know that it claims so many lives, and especially the young children under the age of 5 in sub-Saharan Africa. And there's been a lot of research going on to develop effective vaccine against this disease. And we're getting there slowly but surely. And, you know, it's just a very complicated parasite, Plasmodium parasite. It's very complicated. But what I love the most is that the little bit that I'm doing as a scientist, and even for my project, it's helping create more knowledge and discovering the vaccine development for malaria. And it will help, you know, save lives eventually. And that knowledge, well, you know, finding a way of also including not only the research component, but advocacy as well, championing and reaching out to the greater community and sharing with them why this is a very dangerous disease, and why we need the community support as well, and the government support, you know. So being able to do research that can be translated so that you take it from the bench in the lab and you do it goes through the translation process to find a way of developing therapeutics that can help prevent diseases. I think that's fascinating, and it's something that I would really say a huge thank you to all the scientists and for every work that they're doing in different fields. It's never easy, but it takes a lot of persistence, consistency, passion, and just never giving up, but also being very curious and wanting to, you know, get answers to these questions. So yeah, so making a difference to save lives.
That is a pretty big one. Lauren, what is it for you?
Yeah, that was very inspirational, Winter. All right, what is it for me? I think for me, there's two main things. One is that thing I just spoke about was my love of learning and the excitement of creating new knowledge. So there is not a single day that goes by that I don't learn something, which is something that I thoroughly enjoy and I think is really exciting. And I just enjoy that, being on the cutting edge. And the second thing is, I think Winter sort of touched on it, but it's not just in our job, we don't just do one thing every day. We're constantly doing different things, like Winter does advocacy, and I'm sure a million other things, mentoring. So yeah, it's, you know, advocacy, it's mentoring, it's being at the lab doing our science, then it's being at the computer writing up our science to distribute to the world, and then it's talking about our science to people like you, or you know, government officials, or making difference on climate change, or just, yeah, it's something different all the time. And I think I find it really exciting, and I love that you can make a difference in 100 different ways on any given day.
Yeah, I feel like if there's a takeaway from both of your talks this morning, it's been that, yeah, that the science is creating knowledge and that science is making a difference. And that's wonderful to hear. And I am so thankful for the two of you for your time this morning and sharing your journeys with us. So that kind of brings us to the end, because that's all we've got time for. Thank you for joining us. And again, thank you so much for sharing your STEM journeys with us, Winter and Lauren. It's been fantastic. A special thank you for everyone who tuned in this morning. Beyond the Lab has been made possible thanks to IMNIS's major partner, MTP Connect. It's part of their READY initiative, which is the Researcher Exchange and Development in Industry program, a $32 million initiative made possible by the Medical Research Future Fund. So don't forget to fill out your feedback form after you leave this session. And the Shape Your Future series will be continuing all this year, so you can tune in to hear from many more scientists. All the information is available on both the STELR and the ATSI websites. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks.